Hello viewers, today I am going to discuss about nucleic acids. So what are nucleic acids? Nucleic acids are an important class of biomolecules which are present in the nuclei of all living cells in the form of nucleoproteins. And nucleoproteins are conjugated proteins. What are conjugated proteins? Conjugated proteins are the proteins which contain two parts. One is a protein part and another is a non-protein part. Protein part means what are proteins? Proteins are the polymers of amino acids. Okay, so the polymers of amino acid, that is a protein part, and the non-protein part in the conjugated proteins are called prosthetic groups. And the prosthetic group in the nucleoprotein is nucleic acid. So nucleic acid is the prosthetic group of nucleoproteins. Now, on careful hydrolysis, nucleoproteins are broken down into the nucleic acid and protein. Since nucleoproteins are the protein part and non-protein part, that is prosthetic group. So, when you hydrolyze the nucleoproteins carefully, you will get nucleic acid and protein. Now, the two major classes of nucleic acids are ribonucleic acid, that is RNA, and deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA. So, nucleic acids carry an organism's genetic information. They play an important role in the development and reproduction of all forms of life. Okay, you can imagine the importance of DNA by the following facts that are a tiny amount of DNA in a fertilized egg cell determines the physical characteristics of the fully developed animal. Okay, and the difference between, let's say, frog and a human being is encoded in a relatively small part of the DNA. Now, each cell carries a complete set of genetic instructions that determine the type of the cell, its function, when it will grow and divide, and also that how it will synthesize all the proteins. So, DNA plays a very important role. Okay. So, the biological functions of nucleic acids. What are the biological functions? These are the two main biological functions shown by the nucleic acid. One is replication, second is protein synthesis. Now, what is replication? Replication is the process by which a single DNA molecule produces two identical copies of itself is called cell division or replication. Okay. So, a single DNA molecule produces the identical copies of itself. You can get duplicate. Okay. So it is duplication or replication is one and the same thing. DNA has a unique property to duplicate or replicate itself. Okay. DNA encodes an organism's entire hereditary information and controls the growth and the division of the cells. When the cell divides, DNA replicates to form two copies for the daughter cell. So this is replication. Okay. And the second is protein synthesis. In most organisms, the genetic information stored in DNA is transcribed into RNA. This information can then be translated for the synthesis of all the proteins needed for cellular structure and function. So, proteins are synthesized by various RNA molecules in the cell. Cell has rRNA, mRNA, tRNA. These are the different RNA molecules which we are not discussing in the details here. So proteins are synthesized by various RNA molecules in the cell, but the message for the synthesis of a particular protein is present in DNA. That means you can say DNA may be regarded as the instruction manual for the synthesis of all the proteins present in a cell. So this is the biological importance of nucleic acids. Now come to the chemistry part. Okay, this is nucleic acids. I have drawn this chart to show that what are the various hydrolytic products obtained under different hydrolytic conditions. So this is nucleic acids. When you hydrolyze nucleic acid with aqueous ammonia at 115 degrees Celsius or barium hydroxide, you get nucleotides. Okay. When you treat the nucleic acid by enzymes, that is enzymatic hydrolysis by the enzyme nucleanase, you will get nucleotides. So whether you carried out the hydrolysis through this aqueous ammonia at 115 degrees Celsius or barium hydroxide or enzymes, you will get nucleotides. And if you do the hydrolysis by magnesium oxide in solution and heat it, you will get nucleosides plus phosphoric acid. And the nucleotides obtained by either this method or by this method, when they are hydrolyzed with aqueous ammonia at 175 degrees Celsius temperature, again you get nucleosides plus phosphoric acid. And these nucleosides, when hydrolyzed by inorganic acids, they give sugars plus purines plus pyrimidines. And when the nucleic acid is treated with 12 normal perchloric acid or formic acid, it hydrolyzes completely to give sugars, purines, pyrimidines and phosphoric acid. Now, can we draw some conclusion from this chart? See, nucleic acids give nucleotides. Nucleotides give nucleosides plus phosphoric acid, and nucleosides give sugars, purines and pyrimidines. Purines and pyrimidines are the nitrogenous bases. So, what conclusion we can draw from this chart? Number one, nucleic acids are polynucleotides. As you can see here, nucleic acids give nucleotides. So, large number of nucleotides combine to give nucleic acids. Okay. So, nucleic acids are polynucleotides. Then nucleotide consists of three chemical components, bases, which are pyrimidines and purines, sugars and phosphoric acid. Again, see, the nucleotides give nucleosides plus phosphoric acid, and nucleosides give sugars, purines and pyrimidines. So, they are bases plus sugars plus phosphoric acid. Then you get nucleotides. Okay. Then, what are nucleosides? What is a nucleoside? Nucleoside is base plus sugar. Again, as you can see here, when the nucleosides hydrolyze in inorganic acids, in presence of inorganic acids, they give sugars plus purines plus pyrimidines. That is sugars plus bases. And therefore, nucleoside is equal to base plus sugar. And what are nucleotides? What are nucleotides? Nucleotides are base plus sugar plus phosphate. Again, see, nucleotides give nucleosides, nucleosides give this, and therefore nucleotides contain phosphoric acid, sugars and bases. So, this is the inference from that chart. Okay. Next. So, the bases. Bases in nucleic acids. What are the various bases which are present in nucleic acids? As we have discussed, two types of bases are present, pyrimidine and purine. Okay. So, we'll discuss both of them one by one. So, pyrimidine bases. So, this is pyrimidine. The base is here. This is uracil, thymine and cytosine. These are the three bases which are present in the nucleic acids, pyrimidine bases. If you want to see the detail of these three compounds, you can watch my video on pyrimidines in nucleic acids. So, this is uracil. This is thymine. What is the difference between uracil and thymine? Yes, there is a methyl group which is present here, and this is cytosine. Now, this is the way by which we can number a pyrimidine nucleus: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So, if I have to name thymine in terms of uracil, what is the difference between uracil thymine, the methyl group, and what is the position of this methyl group? 5th. Okay. So, thymine is also called as 5-methyl uracil. Okay. So, these are the three pyrimidine bases, and now the purines. See here, this is purine ring. This is the way how we can number it. Again, if you want to discuss or see the detail of purines, you can watch my video on purines in nucleic acids and how to number it: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So, this is the way of numbering: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are the two tautomers of purine. In this tautomer, the hydrogen atom is present on the 7th nitrogen, while in this tautomer, the hydrogen is present on the 9th nitrogen. And these are the two purine bases which are present in nucleic acid. This is adenine and this is guanine. Now, adenine, if I ask you to name adenine in terms of purine, can you do that? Yes. This is the purine ring. And what is the difference between this purine and adenine? The presence of amino group, and the amino group is present at 6th position. So, you can name adenine as 6-aminopurine. Okay. What about guanine? Now, in the guanine, see, this is not a purine ring. Yeah. Here we want a bond for purine ring. So, it undergo keto-enol tautomerase. So the lone pair of electrons will shift here and the pi electrons will shift towards the oxygen. So there will be double bond, single bond, OH. H moves from here to here. That is why it is called tautomerase. And by the tautomerase, the keto form is getting converted into enol form. So bond here, single bond, OH. So now it will be a purine ring. And then the OH group is present at the 6th position and NH2 group is present at 2nd position. Okay. So this is 2nd position, NH2, 6th position, OH. So if I have to name guanine in terms of purine, I can name it as 2-amino 6-hydroxy purine. Okay. So now we are compiling the two pyrimidines and purine bases. So these are the 3 pyrimidine bases. You have to remember the structure of all these bases because then we have to write down the nucleic acids. So pyrimidines and purines are one of the component in that. So we need to know the structure of these units. So this is pyrimidine uracil. This one thymine 5-methyl uracil, and this is cytosine. Okay. And then purines. These are the 2 purines, adenine and guanine. Now, this uracil is present only in RNA. RNA, ribonucleic acid, only uracil is present. Uracil is present only in RNA. Thymine is present only in DNA, while cytosine is present in both RNA and DNA. What about adenine and guanine? Both of them are present in both RNA and DNA. So, cytosine, adenine and guanine. These are the 3 bases which are present in both RNA as well as DNA. While the uracil is present only in RNA and thymine is present only in DNA. So, basically in RNA, in either RNA or DNA, 4 bases are present. So, in RNA it is uracil, cytosine, adenine and guanine. While in DNA it is cytosine, thymine, adenine and guanine. Now the sugars which are present in the nucleic acids. 2 sugars have been isolated from hydrolysis of nucleic acids. Both of them are pentoses. They are D-ribose and 2-deoxy-D-ribose. Okay. What is pentose? Pentose, pent means 5. Ose is for sugar. So 5 carbon sugar is called pentose. Okay. So now what is the structure of ribose? This is ribose. It is a cyclic structure. I have numbered it as 1 dash, 2 dash, 3 dash, 4 dash, 5 dash. The dash here, 1 dash, 2 dash is to differentiate this numbering for the numbering from the bases. Because bases are numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is numbered as 1 dash, 2 dash, 3 dash, 4 dash and 5 dash. So 5 carbon atoms are there. So it is pentose. Now here, this is C1 carbon. And at the C1 carbon, if the OH group is pointing upward, then it is called beta. So it is beta. The beta means the OH is pointing upward. If the OH is pointing downward, then it is alpha. So here in the nucleic acid, it is a beta ribose which is present. Okay. Now the second is 2-deoxy-ribose. 2-deoxy. Deoxy means removal of oxygen. So at 2nd position there is no oxygen. So if there is no oxygen here at 2nd position, so there is only H. So it is 2-deoxyribose. So everything is same in ribose and 2-deoxyribose except at 2nd 2' position in ribose it is OH, while in 2-deoxyribose it is H. So this is the difference between the structural difference between the 2 ribose. While here also in deoxyribose, at C1' the OH group is present upward and therefore it is beta. So the nucleic acids are classified according to the nature of the sugar present. Okay. If this sugar is present, then the nucleic acid is called ribonucleic acid, that is RNA. And if this sugar is present, then that means if deoxyribose, then it is deoxyribonucleic acid. So depending upon which sugar is present, nucleic acid is named accordingly. When it is ribose, then it is ribonucleic acid. If it is 2-deoxyribose, then it is deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA. Okay. So now we will come to, we know that what are the main components for the nucleic acids? That is bases. We have discussed the bases. Then sugars. We have discussed the sugars, and then the phosphoric acid. All of us know what is a phosphoric acid. Okay. So now start with the nucleoside first. We have discussed that the nucleosides are composed of bases and sugars. So base plus sugar will give nucleoside. Now let's discuss this. This, if you can recollect, this is uracil, okay, and this is ribose. In the first position of the uracil is linked to the first position of the ribose, okay. So first of NH was H was there in case of uracil and OH was there here. So OH and H goes out as water molecule, and now there is a bond between this nitrogen carbon. So in nucleoside there is a bond between C1 ribose and N1 of the pyrimidine. And since it is the OH, which is the beta OH is involved, and therefore this linkage is beta linkage. Is it okay? And now since this is uracil which is attached to the ribose, so it is ribosyl uracil or uridine. Okay. Now next, what is this? It is cytosine, and this is ribose. And as we have discussed that N1 of the cytosine is attached to C1 of the sugar, linkage is beta, and it is cytosine attached to the ribose. So the name is ribosyl cytosine or cytidine. Okay. Next, this is thymine. Thymine, as I told you, thymine is present only in DNA, and therefore here the sugar is deoxyribose. So see here at second we have only H, not OH. So it is deoxyribose. Okay. So the name deoxyribosyl thymine or thymidine. Okay. So the nucleoside, if the uracil is present, it is uridine. If cytosine is present, it is cytidine. If thymine is present, then it is thymidine. So these are the name of the nucleosides. Now come to the purine nucleosides. So this is adenine, and in the purine it is, if you can recollect, it is a ninth nitrogen is attached to C1 of the sugar, and that to the OH of beta OH. So it is beta linkage, and the linkage is through C1 of the ribose and ninth nitrogen of the purine. Okay. So how to name it? It is ribosyl adenine, or you can say adenosine. So this is adenosine. And then guanine. This is guanine part. You can see this is guanine. And in the guanine again the ninth position is attached to the C1. And therefore the name of this will be ribosyl guanine or guanosine. So the name of the nucleosides I hope is clear to everyone. It is uridine, cytidine, thymidine, and adenosine and guanosine. These are nucleosides. Now, when the sugar is 2-deoxyribose, the names of the deoxyribonucleosides of the bases are obtained by adding the prefix deoxy to the name of the corresponding nucleoside. For example, this is what? Cytosine. This is cytosine attached to the sugar. So name is cytidine, but here the sugar is deoxy. So it is deoxycytidine. Same way here, this is guanine attached to the ribose, so guanosine, and at second it is only H, then it is deoxyguanosine, and so on. So you can name the deoxyribonucleosides also by prefix deoxy. Okay, now the nucleotides. What are nucleotides? We have seen the nucleotide is equal to base plus sugar plus phosphate. Okay, now nucleoside plus phosphate will give nucleotide. Therefore, nucleotides are also called as phosphate ester of nucleoside, because we have seen that nucleotides on hydrolysis with aqueous ammonia at 175 degrees Celsius gives nucleoside plus phosphoric acid. Therefore, the nucleotides are the phosphate esters of nucleosides. So, here the phosphate group is attached at the 5' position of the ribose of the sugar. So, this is the sugar. This is the 5' carbon, and the phosphate group is attached here. Okay, so this is the point of attachment in nucleotides. So in nucleotides, it is the 5' phosphate. Now, the phosphate group, if the one phosphate group is present, then it is called monophosphate. If two phosphate groups are present, then it is diphosphate. And if three phosphate groups are present, then it is triphosphate. So this is what? This is uridine, if you can recollect, uracil plus sugar, uridine, and one phosphate group is attached here. So it is uridine monophosphate or UMP. Okay. Then This one, this is what? Adenine. This is ribose. This is phosphate. Adenine plus ribose is adenosine. And one phosphate group is there. So it is adenosine monophosphate or AMP. Another examples. Now here you can see this is what? Again uracil. This is sugar and two phosphate groups. So it is uridine diphosphate, UDP. And then here this unit is adenosine. Three phosphate groups are attached. So it is ATP or adenosine triphosphate. Okay. So this is how you can name a nucleotide, and if the name is given, you can easily write down the structure as well. So now we are coming to the main part. Now we know what are nucleotides, what are nucleosides. Now we will discuss the structure of nucleic acids. So let's first discuss the structure of RNA, that is ribonucleic acids. Now to find out the structure, we will do the enzymatic hydrolysis. Enzymes hydrolyze specific ester bonds in RNA. Enzymes are very specific in nature. Specific in nature means they hydrolyze a typical type of or specific bond. Now in RNA, we will see that these are the two enzymes which we can use. Spleen phosphodiesterase. This is the enzyme which is specific for the C5-OP bond. C5-OP bond means the fifth 5' carbon and the bond between oxygen and phosphorus. It cleaves that bond. If it cleaves that bond, so it converts RNA into a mixture of ribonucleoside 3' phosphates. I will show you in the next slide. So spleen phosphodiesterase is specific for this and therefore give a mixture of ribonucleoside 3' phosphates. And snake venom phosphodiesterase, this is another enzyme which is specific for C3-OP bond. That means it cleaves the 3-OP bond and converts the RNA into a mixture of ribonucleoside 5-phosphates. So you are getting ribonucleoside 3' phosphates, you are getting ribonucleoside 5' phosphates. It means that the linkage between the two different nucleotides are at 5' and 3', and therefore RNA is a linear structure of units linked by 3', 5' bonds. So this is RNA molecule. You can see this is RNA. Okay. In this RNA molecule, see here, this is one nucleotide and this is another nucleotide. And the linkage is through, this is the 5'. 5' of one nucleotide is interconnected with 3' of another nucleotide through this phosphate group. So 5' and 3' with this phosphate group. So this is the linkage. This is dinucleotide. As you can see, two nucleotides are there. So it is dinucleotide. Now this one, how many units are there? 1, 2, 3. So this is trinucleotide and the linkage is same. 3' of this is attached with 5' of this through phosphate group. Similarly, 3' of this attached to the 5' of another one to the phosphate group. And this linkage is called phosphodiester linkage. You see, for diester bond is there, one ester from here, one ester from here. So it is phosphodiester linkage. So this is the RNA molecule. Okay. Now I am discussing the enzymatic hydrolysis. We have discussed two enzymes which hydrolyze the RNA. Now we'll see how they are doing hydrolysis. So it is spleen phosphodiesterase and it is specific for C5-OP bond. See here, this is 5' carbon and this bond OP bond. So it is specific for that, means it cleaves at these positions. So 5' of this is 5' carbon OP bond and here this is 5' carbon, so OP bond. So spleen phosphodiesterase is specific, cleaves the C5-OP bond. Okay. So if it cleaves this bond, look at the structure. If it cleaves here, what will you get from here? 3' phosphate. If it cleaves here, what will you get from here? 3' phosphate. So you end up with a mixture of ribonucleoside 3' phosphates. I hope it's clear to everyone. Okay. Since the cleavage is here, so the phosphate group is now attached with 3'. Similarly, the cleavage is here. So the phosphate group is attached to 3'. and therefore you will end up with a mixture of ribonucleoside 3-phosphates. Now, another enzyme is snake venom phosphodiesterase. Now, it is specific for C3-OP bond. This is 3-, so this is OP bond. Similarly, this is 3-, so this is OP bond, and therefore this enzyme will cleave from here and from here. If it cleaves from here, okay, so the phosphate group is attached to the 5th carbon. Yeah, here there is a cleavage, so it is attached at the 5th carbon. Similarly, here the cleavage, so it will attach at the phosphate group is present at the 5th carbon, and therefore a mixture of ribonucleoside 5-phosphates are obtained. So this is the reason. I think this is clear to everyone. Spleen phosphodiesterase is specific for C5-OP bond. So cleave this bond and therefore ends in a mixture of or results in a mixture of ribonucleoside 3-phosphates. While the snake venom phosphodiesterase is specific for C3-OP bond and therefore cleaves at the 3rd position, and therefore the phosphate group will be attached to the 5th position. Okay. So this is the structure of RNA. As you can see here, this is the structure of RNA where this is the sugar phosphate backbone as we have seen. Okay. This and these are the bases. Bases: cytosine denoted by blue color, guanine denoted by green, adenine by yellow, and uracil by mustard. So the backbone of nucleic acid consists of alternating phosphate and pentoses. Now let's see the previous slide. Just a minute. Yes, here. As you can see here, this sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate. So this is the backbone. Alternate sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate. And the bases are also present. Okay. So the backbone of nucleic acid consists of alternating phosphates and pentoses. So this is the backbone and the bases are attached to the sugar. As we have seen, the bases are attached at the C1 position of the sugar. Okay, so this is the structure of RNA. I hope it's clear to everyone. Now, the sequence of bases in RNAs can be elucidated by the method similar to those used in the determination of primary structure of proteins. Here we are discussing this. RNA exists in the primary structure, and primary structure means the sequence in which various bases are present, because you know the backbone is alternate phosphate and sugar. Phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar. So if we know the sequence of the bases, we can write down the structure of RNA. Okay, and this is done in the method similar to what we have done in the primary structure of proteins. In that also we do the end group analysis. I think the term clears, end group analysis. That means we will identify the groups which are present in the end. Okay, so if we find out that these are the end groups and what are the total bases, number of bases, and what is the sequence in which present, so we can find out the structure of RNA. We are not going into too much details. Here we will discuss only the end group, and that too by using the enzyme snake venom phosphodiesterase, which we have already discussed. So the end group have been determined by the enzymatic hydrolysis of RNA with snake venom phosphodiesterase is specific for C3-OP bond. We have discussed it just now. Okay, so if you let us take all of you know this is trinucleotide. Okay, so this is trinucleotide, and if I do the treatment with this enzyme snake venom phosphodiesterase, then it cleaves at the 3' end. Now please look at the structure. Here when the cleavage takes place here this is the first terminal, yeah, 5' end. This is the first terminal. Okay, now here you can see if the bond cleaves here, phosphate group is not present at the 5th position, 5', phosphate group is also not present at the 3'. So this will result in base plus sugar means nucleoside. So on hydrolysis, you will get a nucleoside base 1 end. So where the first base is present, that part of the nucleoside will go, that will remain as a nucleoside. It will not be nucleotide because phosphate group is not attached to it. Only the base and the sugar unit is there. Okay. Now come to this end. This is the another end. Since I have taken the trinucleotide to just show you whole of the structure in a single slide, so I have taken the trinucleotide, but it is a long chain. RNA is a long chain. So the another end where the phosphate group is present at the 5th position, 3rd position, then what will happen here? the cleavage takes place here due to this enzyme at the 3' end. Okay, so when the 3' end cleavage takes place here, so the phosphate group is present at the 5' as well as 3'. So phosphate group is at this terminal is there at two positions at 3' and 5'. Therefore, it is a nucleoside 3' 5' diphosphate. And all those nucleotides which are present in between these two end groups will come out as, here if you see, it comes out as 5' nucleoside 5' phosphate. There is no phosphate at the 3 position, 3'. Okay, so this one end as nucleoside, this end as nucleoside 3' 5' diphosphate, and the center one as nucleoside 5' phosphates. Okay, so this is how. Now when you get, so you are getting the mixture of three things. One is, that is the major component is this one, nucleosides 5' phosphates, and the 1 unit of nucleoside and 1 unit of nucleoside 3' 5' phosphate. These can be separated, identified and estimated by means of chromatographic methods. We need not discuss it in too much detail. So they can be separated and identified. So we can identify that which nucleoside is present in this mixture. So that will be the 5' end. Which nucleotide is present as nucleoside 3' 5' diphosphate, that is one end, and the total number of the total number of nucleotides which are present will give us the length of the polynucleotide chain. So we can estimate the end groups as well as the length of the polynucleotide chain by using this enzyme. Okay. So till now we have discussed enzymatic hydrolysis of RNA, and now we will discuss the alkaline hydrolysis of RNA. Now alkaline hydrolysis of RNA gives that a mixture of 2' and 3' phosphates. This can be explained on the basis of the formation of an intermediate 2' 3' cyclic phosphate. We have seen that the phosphate group is present at the 3rd position and at the 5th position. Okay, so when we are doing the alkaline hydrolysis, how we will explain that we are getting the 2' product as well, because phosphate group is not present at 2'. So this can be explained by considering the formation of intermediate 2' 3' cyclic phosphate. Now see here, this is a RNA molecule. I have taken this RNA. Okay, this is a RNA molecule. Dash shows the long chain. Okay, when you treat it with alkali, in alkaline medium, it gives this cyclic 2' 3' phosphate. You see here 2' 3' and the phosphate group is in the cyclic form. So this is the cyclic structure is present. So it is cyclic 2' 3' phosphate. I will show the mechanism in my next slide. So when you hydrolyze it, now when you hydrolyze it, there are two ways by which it can hydrolyze. Either the cleavage here, it will hydrolyze this bond, or it will hydrolyze this bond. If it hydrolyzes this bond, if this bond gets hydrolyzed, that means phosphate group is present at the 2nd position. So then it will be 2-phosphate. And if it hydrolyzes this bond, then the phosphate group will be attached to the 3rd position. Then it is called 3' phosphate. See here. So when this bond get hydrolyzed, so you get 3' phosphate, and when this bond get hydrolyzed, then you get 2' phosphate. So you get the mixture of 2' and 3' phosphate. Now the mechanism of RNA hydrolysis. Now here what is happening is that the OH group which is present at this 2' position is acting as a nucleophile, and the lone pair of electrons on oxygen will attack on the oxygen and pi electrons will move towards oxygen. So what will you get? There is a bond between this O and P. O and P, there is a bond. This is single bond with O having the negative charge. The H goes out. H goes out as H positive. The medium is alkaline. So there is a loss of water molecule. Are you getting me? So there is a bond between oxygen and phosphorus, and this is single bond. O is having negative charge. This. Okay. Then the negative charge comes back between oxygen and phosphorus, and this PO bond, OP bond, you can say, cleaves. So this bond shifts here. So now there is a double bond, and this bond shifts here. So O will have negative charge. So this bond gets cleaved. So here you get, this is a cyclic structure, and from here when this bond gets cleaved, you get remaining RNA. So this is obtaining as an RNA, remaining RNA, and this bond gets cleaved. And this The other phosphate, at other phosphate positions also, this cyclization is possible. Okay, I have shown only the one part on one phosphate group. So you get 2' 3' cyclic phosphodiester. Now, as I have shown, when you treat it further with the alkali, the cleavage can be here or here to give the mixture of 2' and 3' phosphates. So this is all about the structure of RNA, and now we will discuss structure of DNA. Now DNA is having two type of structures, primary structure and secondary structure. We'll discuss both of them one by one. First is primary structure of DNA. Primary structure, firstly, what is DNA? DNA is a polymer of deoxyribonucleotides. RNA is a polymer of ribonucleotides, while DNA is a polymer of deoxyribonucleotides. Second, in DNA, it is a sequence of nucleotides in the chain of nucleic acids. That how various nucleotides are present in the nucleic acid, that gives the primary structure of DNA. And we know that the units are linked through 3' and 5' internucleotide as it is present in RNA. Okay, so let's see. This I have shown you so many times. This is RNA, as you can see. This is RNA. Now, this is DNA. Now you have to tell me how we can identify that whether it is RNA or DNA. Okay. Can you suggest? We have seen the difference. In RNA, the sugar is ribose. In DNA, it is 2-deoxyribose. Okay. So in RNA, at second 2' position, OH group is present, while in DNA, at 2' position, H is present. Otherwise, the structures, as you can see, are same. So only difference is the OH and H. Okay, so this is the difference between DNA and RNA. Now, Chargaff's rule. It is the basis of base pairing rule. In DNA, amount of adenine is equals to amount of thymine. So A is equals to T, while amount of guanine is equals to amount of cytosine. That is G is equal to C. Therefore, A plus G is equals to T plus C. Simple mathematics. When these two are equal, so A plus G is equal to T plus C. And what is A and G? Adenine and guanine, they are purines. And T and C, thymine and cytosine, they are pyrimidines. So in other words, the total amount of purine bases is equal to total amount of pyrimidine bases. And this can be explained by considering the secondary structure of DNA. Now, what is the secondary structure of DNA? In 1953, J.D. Watson and F.H.C. Crick from X-ray studies proposed a double helical structure for DNA. This model accounts for the equivalence of A and T and of G and C. That is Chargaff's rule. They will tell us that this proposed structure will explain us that why the amount of A is equals to amount of T and amount of G is equals to amount of C. Then DNA molecule has a helical form. What is helical structure? I will show you in my next slide. So DNA molecule has a helical form. Helix contains two intervened strands. That also I will show in the next slide. Due to steric consideration, pairing of bases can occur between a pyrimidine and a purine. See here. This is helical structure. This is coiling. This is helical. And this is intervening strands. One strand is this. As you can see, this green, and another is this green. You see, so they are intervened. So there are two different DNA chains which are intervened. Okay, this is the meaning of that. Okay, so now the important features of Watson and Crick's double helical model of DNA. So two DNA chains wound as right-handed helix round a common axis. This is left-handed helix. This is right-handed helix. See here, as you move from here to here, this is left-handed. Left-handed, you can say clockwise. Okay, this is right-handed. You move from here, it is anti-clockwise. So in DNA, it is a right-handed helix which is there. Okay, so two DNA chains wound as right-handed helix round a common axis. The two strands of double helix we have discussed. Double helix means there are two strands are present. Both are anti-parallel. What is anti-parallel? That is they run in opposite direction. That means one chain is aligned 5 dash 3 dash. You have seen one end is 5 dash, another end is 3 dash. Okay. So the another chain will align that 3 dash and 5 dash. I will show you in after few slides that what is that 5 dash 3 dash and 3 dash 5 dash. Now each polynucleotide chain has a sugar phosphate backbone. This we have seen. In RNA also we have seen that the polynucleotide chain has a backbone of a sugar phosphate group, and the bases are pointing inside the helix towards the central axis. Now in RNA we have seen that the single strand is there and the bases are attached to that. Now when the two strands are there and they are intervened, then they are intervened in such a way that both the bases of one strand and bases of another strand pointing inside and towards each other. Okay, I will show you the structure after few slides. Two chains are wound in such a manner that pyrimidine and purine bases are pointing towards each other. As I told you, there is a steric consideration. Pyrimidine is always paired with purine and purine is always paired with pyrimidine, and therefore pyrimidine and purine bases are pointing towards each other. Pyrimidine will be pointing towards purine and purine will be pointing towards pyrimidine, and the helix are held together by hydrogen bonding between pair of bases. So, this pairing of bases can occur only between a pyrimidine and a purine, and a given pyrimidine can pair only with its complementary purine. Such complementary pairs are A, T and GC. That means A, the complementary. If adenosine is present, then it pair with thymine. Thymine will pair with adenosine. Similarly, guanine will pair with cytosine or cytosine pair with guanine. Now, AT pair is held together by 2 hydrogen bonds, while GC pair is held together by 3 hydrogen bonds. See here. This is AT pair. I will show you that how to draw this. Okay. So, this is AT pair. As you can see, this is adenosine. Okay. This is R. That means the long chain is there. This is adenosine. And this part, this is thymine. Again, the long chain is there. So, adenine and thymine. There is as you can see, 2 hydrogen bonds are present here. Okay. Then it is GC pair. This is guanine part. This is cytosine part. And you can see the 3 hydrogen bonds are present. Now, I'll show you that how to draw this AT pair and GC pair. Okay. See, this is thymine. We have written the structure. We have started with this structure. This is the structure of thymine. Okay. Now you give anti-clockwise rotation, 60 degree. When you give 60 degree anti-clockwise means here, then this keto group will come here. NH group will come here. They will interchange. CO will come here. NH will come here. This CO will go here. NR will come here. Here this carbon will come here and the methyl will come here. So see, after 60 degree rotation, methyl here, oxo here and so you will get this. Okay. Then you flip it horizontal. When you flip it horizontally, what will happen? This is the axis. So these two positions will remain same. When you flip it, the groups which are present on the left hand side will go to the right, and all those groups which are present on the right hand side will go to the left. So see here, methyl and O will remain as it is. The NR will go here and the CO and NH will come on the right hand side. Okay. So this is the structure of thymine. And now you write down, this is the structure of adenine. This we have to write down as it is. Now you can see here, this hydrogen can form hydrogen bonding with this nitrogen, and this hydrogen can form hydrogen bonding with the oxygen. So we'll expand this NH and NH2. Okay, so expand it, NH and H and NH2, and you can easily draw the hydrogen bond. I hope I'm clear to everyone. Now let's see GC pair. In the similar way, we will do for the GC. How? Write down the structure of cytosine. This is the cytosine. Next step, rotate anti-clockwise 60 degree. So you rotate it. So NH2 will come here, N will come here, keto group will come here, NR here, and so all the groups will shift. So you get this NH2 here, and then O, then NR and carbon. Okay, and then next step, flip horizontal. So when you flip it, these two positions will remain same. These left will go right and right will come to left. So you'll get this. NH2 will go there, NR will come here and so on. Now you write down this structure and then write down the guanine structure. Now you can see this oxygen can form hydrogen bonding with NH2. This hydrogen can form hydrogen bonding with this nitrogen, and this hydrogen can form hydrogen bonding with this oxygen. Okay. So we'll expand the structures, the H and H, this H here and H and H. See, we can easily draw the 3 hydrogen bonds. So this is a very easy way to write down the AT and GC pair. I hope it's clear to everyone. Now, 2 DNA strands must be complementary to each other. A chain with a given sequence of bases can pair only with another chain which has a complementary sequence of bases. Is it clear? So if in one strand, if adenosine is present, the A is present, then in another, the complementary segment, it is T. Okay. So the pairing should be there. A form pair with T. Similarly, G forms pair with C. So let's say, for example, this is the one of the segment of DNA and we have to write down the complementary segment. Then how we will write down? Now we have to remember two things here. Number one, that we have discussed that the two strands, the two DNA chains are run in opposite direction. That means if it is 5' here, then in complementary segment it will be 3' and 3' here, so in the complementary segment it is 5'. So this is 5', 3', and the complementary segment it will be 3' and 5', number one. Number two, A will pair with T, C with G, G with C, A with T, C with G, T with A, and so on. So can you write down? Yes. 3', 5', AT, CG, GC, AT, CG, TA, GC, CG, AT, and TA. So this way you can write down the complementary segment. Okay. Now this is the structure of DNA. Now see, here this is phosphate group, ribose, phosphate, ribose, phosphate, ribose, phosphate, ribose. So this is the backbone of one strand. See here, ribose, phosphate, ribose, phosphate, ribose, phosphate, ribose. So this is the backbone of another strand. Number two, see here, this phosphate group is present at the fifth position, CH2OH, fifth position. So this is 5' end. Okay, and here it is OH at the third position, 3', so this is 3' end. And if this is 5' end, so this should be 3' end. See here, the ribose with the OH 3' here. This is 5' phosphate, 5' see CH2O. So this is 5'. So here it is CH2O phosphate, so 5'. So 5', 3', and here 3', 5'. So complementary segment is 3', 5'. Okay. Now see, this is adenine. Adenine C with the sugar, C1 of the sugar is attached to ninth nitrogen of the adenine. Similarly here the ribose, the first position of the ribose is attached to the first nitrogen, N1. Okay, and see, this is thymine, and in between adenine and thymine, 2 hydrogen bonds are present. Same way here, see, this is thymine, this is cytosine, this is guanine, and they are linked through 3 hydrogen bonds. So here this is thymine, this is adenine, linked through 2 hydrogen bonds, and here it is guanine, it is cytosine, so linked to 3 hydrogens. So this is the structure of DNA. Now X-ray studies. X-ray studies have shown that pairs are planar. That means these pairs, the base pairs, they are in same plane. Hydrogen bonds are almost collinear. That means the hydrogen bonds which are present, collinear means they are in a straight line. Diameter of the helix is about 20 angstrom, that is 2 nanometer. The spacing between adjacent pairs is 3.4 angstrom, that is 0.34 nanometer. There are 10 base pairs in one turn of the helix. Therefore, each turn of the helix is 34 angstrom or 3.4 nanometer. Now see, this is the structure. This is a double helical structure of DNA. You can easily draw this structure. See here, this is 3' end, 5' end. Now this, see, 3' end. This is 5', and you start with 5', and this is 3'. Okay. See, these are the pairs, base pairs, they are present. Okay. These are the base pairs. See the diameter, 2 nanometer. The distance between the two base pairs, 0.34 nanometer, and between in one turn, this is a complete turn. There are 10 bases inside this. It is 3.4 nanometer. And this green part is sugar phosphate backbone, and all these are base pair. So I think it is clear to everyone the structure, double helical structure of DNA. Now stacking interactions. The nitrogenous bases lie almost perpendicular to the axis of molecule. Therefore, these are stacked one on top of the another. Okay, they are, see here in this slide, they are one above the other. Okay, as you are stacking the books, so there's just like that, one above the another. Okay, so the hydrophobic interaction between them provide stability to DNA. These are van der Waals interactions, hydrophobic interactions or van der Waals interactions between them, which is called stacking interaction. And although you know van der Waals interactions are the weakest interactions, okay, but we know that large number of these bases are present in DNA, and therefore when they are added together, when these forces are added together, they contribute significantly to the stability of the double helix. Okay, so double helix is stable due to two reasons. Due to the first, the hydrogen bonding between the pairs, A and T, 2 hydrogen bonds, G and C, 3 hydrogen bonds, and also the stacking interactions which provides stability to the helix. Now, these interactions are strongest between two purines and weakest between two pyrimidines. This all of you know that van der Waals forces or interactions depends upon the size. As purines are bigger in size, so they will have the strongest interaction. Pyrimidines are smaller in size, so they have the weakest interaction. And when there is a purine and pyrimidine, so it is in between, so the interaction is also in between. Okay. Now, the important fact about RNA and DNA. We have discussed that RNA is hydrolyzed easily. We can cleave. RNA is cleaved easily because 2-OH group of the ribose can act as a nucleophile, form cyclic 2-3- This we have seen. Even we have seen the mechanism for this reaction. In DNA, 2-OH group is absent. We have seen it is deoxyribonucleic acid, 2-deoxy. So at second position, oxygen is not there. So 2-OH group is absent, and therefore cyclic 2-3- is prevented. How it will be formed? When the 2-OH group is not there, then the cyclic 2-3- cannot be formed. This explains why the 2-OH group is absent in DNA. We know that DNA provides genetic information. It is a source of genetic information. So to preserve the genetic information, DNA must remain intact throughout the lifespan of a cell. Okay, so therefore it should not be cleaved easily. Okay, while in contrast, RNA is synthesized as it is needed and is degraded once it has served its purpose. We have seen that we can synthesize RNA whenever it is required. It can be degraded when it serves its purpose. So in RNA, it is required, and therefore the 2-OH is present. In DNA, it is not required. So 2-OH group is absent. Now the main difference between DNA and RNA. So DNA occurs mainly in the nucleus of the cell. RNA occurs in the cytoplasm of the cell. In DNA, it has double-stranded alpha helix structure in which two strands are coiled around a central axis in the opposite direction, while RNA has a single-stranded alpha helix structure. In DNA, the sugar moiety is 2-deoxyribose, while in RNA, the sugar moiety is ribose. Then the base uracil is not present. Here the base thymine is not present. In DNA, it has a unique property of replication, while RNA does not replicate. DNA is responsible for transmission for heredity character, while RNA helps in the protein biosynthesis. DNA, they are very large molecules. Their molecular weight varies from 6 million to 16 million, while in RNA, their molecules are much smaller and their molecular weights ranging from 20,000 to 40,000. Now this you can see from the structure. This is single stranded. This is double stranded. There is a pairing of bases here. Here the bases are present like this. I have shown it, as I told you, the cytosine by blue color, guanine by G color. So see, there is a linkage between pairing between blue and green. Okay, so blue and green is cytosine and guanine, and adenine and thymine is yellow and maroon. So yellow and maroon pairing, base pairing in DNA. Okay. So this is all about DNA, RNA and nucleic acids. Thanks for watching.